Hey, so this is working, I guess. This is only like my second Periscope ever, and I'm super nervous. The whole aspect of like it being live is freaking me out. So I'm using this because I'm like totally like, it took me like 15 minutes to press start broadcast because I'm just like, this is so out of my comfort zone. So hopefully I don't just like cry like a little baby. I miss you too, Chelsea. I love you. But I wanted to do this Periscope because probably only the people who even know me are watching this, but I've been pretty open about like my journey thus far with having 2 miscarriages. I made like a big blog post about that a couple months ago on my blog, which I'm not really very active on. I honestly just like made that blog just for that post. And I posted a couple other times on it too, but if you want to read that, it's anointedwithhisjoy.com, and I go through and talk about like my little story with having 2 miscarriages after having one baby who was totally perfectly healthy, and I had no problems with that pregnancy whatsoever. So when I had that first miscarriage, I was like just blown away, and it was a huge shock to me and my husband both, but then the second miscarriage happened and we were just like, excuse me, what? Like, how in the world is this happening a second time? I've had friends who have had miscarriages, a lot of people in my life who have been kind of open about it, and it was kind of like a lot of people who had first pregnancy miscarriages. So I was kind of like, after I had my first pregnancy and it was perfect, I was like, oh well, that's not going to happen to me. You know, I know people who have had like secondary miscarriages after having one baby, but I was like, oh well, the chances of that are like so low, that is not going to happen to me. So after we got pregnant again, we were like telling everybody. We bought Brody a little shirt that said, I'm being promoted to Big Brother, and like took his picture and sent it to all of our like close friends and family. So it was kind of like we had no issues like telling anybody about that. We were pretty confident that, you know, this was gonna end up in a baby, just like Brody had ended up to be a baby in our arms. I carried him to term, and he's a wonderful little 2.5-year-old now. So whenever we had the miscarriage, like I said, we were devastated, and we had to grieve through that and get past it. Well, not like past it, but you know what I mean. We had to just move on, and we can't dwell on it, you know. So we got pregnant again. That was in October last year, was the first miscarriage. And we got pregnant again a few months later and had another miscarriage in March. And that was about, the first one was 10 weeks. The second one was about 7 weeks, between 7 and 8 weeks. And Saturday, this past Saturday, so like 5 days ago, I learned that my 7-week pregnancy that was currently happening had also ended. The fetus had passed away at like 7 weeks one day. So that was the third one. I didn't think that I was gonna cry, but we were just like You know, how is this happening a third time? The second time, you know, like the second time we got pregnant after the first miscarriage, everyone was like, that's not going to happen again. Like, you're going to be fine. And I believe that too. You know, I was like, chances are it's not going to happen again. And it did. And I have friends, 2 friends actually in particular, who one of them, I didn't even know her before I got into Young Living. And the other one, I've gotten closer to her through Young Living, who, that was their exact same story. They had a baby, perfectly healthy, like no problems with their pregnancy, and then followed by 2 miscarriages. And they both have second babies now. So I drew a lot of confidence from that, and I was like, well, that's not going to happen to me a third time. Like, look what happened to them. They had babies, you know, they had 2 miscarriages, and that was horrible, but they've since gone on to have healthy babies again. So, that happened, the third one, and I was just blown away. You know, like, each time it happens, you think it's not gonna hurt as bad the next time, but it does. So, I hate that I'm crying. This is, I mean, not very comfortable for me to be crying, like, on a live stream video, but I kept feeling like I have to talk about this because I've already been so open about the other 2, and this is just like a continuation of this story. And this is not at all to, like, bring attention to myself. Like, if you joined at the very beginning of the Periscope, I was saying, like, it took me like 15 minutes to press start broadcast because I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. Oh, by the way, I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stickers on my hand, thanks to my 2-year-old from earlier. They're still on there. He's taking a nap. Whatever. Boy mom life. So I just kept feeling like Brody does rock. I needed to talk about this because I feel like I'm learning some lessons through this, and the number one lesson that I feel like I've learned is to not be prideful. Like I said, I've had friends who have had miscarriages, and a lot of friends who have had problems getting pregnant, infertility, and like, not consciously, I always kind of thought, like, oh, well, it's pretty awesome that that's not my problem. You know, like, everyone has issues. I know I've got issues, but thank God that that is not one of my issues. It's not something I was, like consciously trying to be prideful about, but, I was very proud that I had gotten pregnant with no problems. Like, we were not trying to get pregnant. It was an accident. And, I had a perfectly healthy pregnancy. And I would catch myself thinking stuff like, well, if that person would just eat right, or use essential oils, or stop taking, you know, all of those terrible over-the-counter things that they're putting into their body, then maybe they wouldn't have problems getting pregnant. You know, like, I kept thinking stuff like that in my head. And, now that I've, like, been brought down several notches, I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? Like, that, any bad thing can happen to anybody, and nobody is immune. It doesn't matter if you are the healthiest person in the world. Like, one of my really good friends from high school, Ashley, her dad, I can remember going over to her house, and we would always have sleepovers, and she was just one of my really good friends. her dad was like the healthiest fit guy that I knew. Like, he worked out all the time. He was just like, he was one of those guys that seemed to eat right, and he was constantly working out. Like, every time we were over there, I would think, God, I think he's gotten even more muscles. Like, he was just a fit dude. And he passed away from a heart attack, like, not very long ago, maybe 3 years ago or so. And it makes you think, you know, it makes you realize that nobody is immune. It doesn't matter sometimes how much good that you try to do for your body and how much, you know, you think that you've got it going on and you're rocking. Like, whenever it's your time for something to happen, or whenever it's your time to go, like, that's what's going to happen. It's out of our control. We can try, and I fully believe in treating your body the way that it was designed to be treated, and putting the right food into it and putting the right medicine into it. But I'm just saying some things are out of our control. So why was I so intent on thinking, you know, like, I got it going on? You know, I use essential oils, I use supplements, I drink this, I don't drink Diet Coke, and I don't do this, and I don't do that. So, you know, if they would just do the same things that I'm doing, then they would have healthy pregnancies too. And I'm just like, that is one of the main lessons that I have learned, is not to be prideful. And I've been reading a lot the last few days. I've been like a hermit and not really talking to a lot of people. Not on purpose, not because I don't totally love all my friends, but I've just kind of been like introspective the last few days, and just trying to gain a lot of like wisdom and knowledge from books and different things. So I've like underlined some really good things that I've learned. And one of the things came out of this book right here, Traveling Light by Max Lucado. And it's like subtitled, Releasing the Burdens You Were Never Intended to Bear. And he goes, each chapter is a verse of Psalm 23. And chapter 9 was Get Over Yourself, the Burden of Arrogance. And when I got to this chapter, this will tell you how much I needed this. I was like, I probably don't even need to read this. So I just like, I mean, I read the whole book, so I just kept on reading, and it goes to on just like state several verses from the Bible, from Proverbs, about how the Lord despises pride, do nothing out of vain conceit, don't let arrogance come out of your mouth. And then this stuck out to me because this was just in a Periscope not that long ago, a few days ago, maybe last week sometime, of one of my leaders in Young Living. She was talking about how pride goes before a fall. And I was like, that just totally made me realize how prideful I had been, you know, about my miscarriages and about my fertility in general. And it just goes to show you that, like, whenever you think bad things can't happen to you, they totally can. Like, God brought me down several notches. I'm not saying that he did that on purpose to hurt me, but I believe that he uses all things that happen in our lives to teach us lessons. So through this, he is teaching me not to count myself out. I'm not just the magical person who doesn't get bad things thrown at her, you know. And I have notes because I knew that I would get sidetracked. Hey, my husband is home. So this has allowed me to step back and start learning some lessons. Another thing is after my second miscarriage, a girl said to me, I just don't know how you do it. Like, I wouldn't be able to handle that. And I was like, yeah, you would, because if it happened to you, like, what would you do? You have to handle it. I'm trying to find this other page in here that I was going to talk about, but Matthew 6:34 says that God will give you what you need to handle a problem when it comes up. Basically is the gist of it. I wanted to actually read the verse, but I lost the page. So that really stuck out to me, and I was like, that is so true, because a lot of people, not just that one girl I mentioned, have said, like, I don't know how you did it. And I was talking to my friend who has had 2 miscarriages after my second one, and she was like, yeah, people would say that to me all the time. And she said, I would look back at them and say, well, I can't just lay in bed. Like, I have a baby to take care of. I have a kid. I have to handle it. So whenever stuff comes up, you do handle it. It's, I am learning that, and in this book, I finished that Traveling Light book, and then I started this one, Broken Open, How Difficult Times Can Help Us Grow. And this guy in here was talking about, he was like brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and he went around the world and did all these talks, and people came out and heard his speeches, and he had a stroke. The kind of stroke, sorry, my nose is running, the kind of stroke that only 10% of people survive. And so he was greatly disabled after his stroke. And he could hardly form sentences. So the lady who's writing this book said that she went to visit him after his stroke, and she said, what did you lose? And he said, ego. Gone. Nothing more to lose. Ego breaks open. Then you see who you really are. And that was like, yep, your pride goes before a fall. And he also said that he discovered that the fear of the stroke was worse than actually having the stroke. That you can put, substitute the word stroke for anything. Fear of the car accident was worse than actually having a car accident. Fear of my husband dying was actually worse than my husband dying. I'm not saying that the bad stuff that happens to us is not bad and it's not horrible. It is. But I can tell you from my perspective of losing pregnancies that the fear of losing the pregnancy was worse than actually having to deal with it and know that it was happening, and then, okay, what's the next step? Like, once it was happening, I knew I can handle this. I have to handle it. Like, I can't, there's no other option. So that is another thing that I'm learning, not to be afraid. Like, you can't just live in fear and anxiety of all the things that could happen, because that is worse than the things actually happening to you. That's another thing I'm learning. This woman, the lady who wrote this book is telling a lot of people stories about how different things that are happening in their lives, terrible things that have happened. This one of her friends, her name is Judy. She asked Judy how she was able to handle the weight of all the stuff that had happened to her in her life with so much courage. And I love what she said. She said, I don't know if there even is a how. There's only the trust that we are given what we are given for a good reason. And we don't need to understand the reason. We don't have to ask, why me? What keeps me going is the faith that with the pain comes something greater. I'm always looking for the greater thing, and I am forever finding it. I thought that was awesome. The next page of the book I underlined, it is the suffering itself that prepares us to receive the miracles. And all throughout this book, I'm just learning that when we go through something bad, it helps us be a better person through that. I just know a lot of people who haven't had to deal with pregnancy loss or even recurrent pregnancy loss, because I feel like that is like on a whole other level. And even with mine, like, I feel like there's a lot of women who have suffered more than me. I'm on a recurrent pregnancy loss group on Facebook, and this one lady in particular has had 10 pregnancies and 1 carried to term. So I'm like thinking she even has it worse than I do. But I think a lot of people may not understand what their friends who have had miscarriages are going through, and how much of a loss it is. Another section in this book, Traveling Light, talks about grief and his friends who had conceived a baby. The pregnancy was kind of hard, and they ended up losing the baby while before it was born. And the dad said, not just a baby died, a dream died. And I was like, that's so true. So I guess one of my objectives to doing this video and to like being so open about it is so that women who have gone through this, or maybe this is not even their story, maybe you're just going through problems, or maybe you can't get pregnant, or maybe you're going through a divorce, or whatever your problem is, you don't have to be ashamed of it, and you don't have to think that, you know, you're any less of a person or anything because you're going through something hard. So I think I'm going to count myself blessed that I've had to do this, because I can probably think of a million other things that I would not want to happen in my life. You know, I still have my husband, I still have my son, and I look at people who haven't gone through loss, and how mean and hateful they can be about the stupidest stuff. You know, I deal with people on a daily basis with Young Living, and I have to actually know people and communicate with people, and some people are hateful. They're just plain mean, and I'm thinking to myself, if you go through something hard in your life, that is going to change your whole perspective on how to treat people. So I count myself blessed, honestly, to have like a new perspective on living life on a daily basis, not having to worry about tomorrow, not having to think to myself like, oh, my life is so hard because I have to do laundry, I have to do this and that, I have to change another diaper, Brody is throwing fits, my life sucks. Like, my perspective has totally changed. Every time he starts to get on my nerves, and he still gets on my nerves, I'm human, you know, my son gets on my nerves, but I have a new perspective on it now. I think to myself, well, if he wasn't here, I would really be wishing that I had some children to get on my nerves. So, and it's like, another objective for me, it's telling my story, is it's kind of therapeutic for me to be able to say it all out loud. And maybe someone can learn the same lessons that I'm learning as I go through this. And I want to keep on, like, sharing my journey with this, because I don't think that it's over. I believe that, I'm going to have more children. And my next step is starting to see, some specialists, and take my health to the next level and make sure that I am completely healthy and I'm doing everything I can to support my body. So I kind of just want to be transparent and share that kind of stuff with you, and if I'm allowed, take my periscoping into the doctor's offices with me and stuff like that, not to bring pride to myself, not to lift myself up and say how awesome is this, but I want to see other people's stories. Like, as a person, I love to hear other people's stories, even if I don't know them. I've been following a couple who uses Young Living, and they're pretty popular in the Fort Worth area. They lost a baby shortly after it was born last year. That was their third child. And they recently adopted a newborn baby, and I'm just like so overjoyed with them. And I don't even know them personally. So I just think if I don't talk about it, there's no reason for me to be going through this. And my husband has told me, he told me just the other day, he's like, you're going to help somebody with this. And I think, you know, if I don't talk about it, how am I going to help anybody? And I don't know. So that's why I'm talking about it. And that's all I have for today. So I don't know. Thank you guys so much for joining with me. That little number right there has stayed at 6 like the entire time. So that makes me feel really, really happy. And I love all of y'all, and I can't wait to share with you this journey and good news in the future. So love you guys. Bye.